hilarious, larger than life. She loved performing in church skits, singing in the school choir, hosting sleepovers, and being completely obsessed with the boy band Menudo. She was the kind of kid who made everything feel like a special occasion, because to her, everything was. Christmas 1984 was 5 days away, and Jonelle Matthews was absolutely buzzing. December 20th, 1984. Jonelle had actually been sick with a cold for several days before this. Most kids would have used that as an excuse to stay home. Not Jonelle. She practically begged her parents to let her go to school. She had Christmas gifts to hand out to friends she wouldn't see for 2 weeks, and more importantly, she had been selected to perform with the Franklin Middle School Honor Choir at their annual holiday concert. That concert was televised on a local cable network. There was no way she was missing it. Jim and Gloria agreed with one condition: come straight home after and rest. That evening, Jonelle performed at the Intra-West Bank Concert Hall. Her friend Deanna Ross was there, too. The two girls sang together, laughed together, and after the show, Deanna's father, Russell, offered to drive Jonelle home. That car ride was the last normal moment of Jonelle Matthews' life. At approximately 8:15 p.m., Russell Ross pulled up to the Matthews home at 324 3rd Avenue Court. Jonelle got out, said goodbye to Deanna, wished her a Merry Christmas, and walked up the driveway. Russell and Deanna sat in the car and watched the unspoken agreement of a small town. They waited until Jonelle made it inside. The foyer light flickered on. That was the signal. She's in. She's safe. Russell drove away. He had no idea he was the last person, other than her killer, to ever see Jonelle Matthews alive. At around 8:30 p.m., Jonelle answered a phone call. A teacher from her father's school, calling to say he wouldn't be in the next morning. Jonelle took down the message, polite, responsible, completely normal. That phone call is the last confirmed contact with Jonelle Matthews. Something happened inside that house between 8:30 and 9:30 p.m., and whatever it was, it happened fast. Jim Matthews had been at Jennifer's basketball game that evening. Gloria was out of state, caring for her own sick mother. When Jim pulled into the driveway around 9:30 p.m., he expected to find Jonelle relaxing on the couch, maybe watching TV, maybe already asleep. He walked inside. The house was warm. The space heater was running beside the Christmas tree. Jonelle's favorite shawl was draped across the back of the couch. Her shoes were sitting perfectly on the floor in front of her usual spot, still warm from her feet. The girl who wore them was gone. When Jennifer came home from the basketball game and called out, "Jonelle, Jonelle, are you there?" and heard nothing, the fear hit both of them at once. Jim called the Greeley police. They arrived within 15 minutes. What they found outside the house sent a chill through every officer on scene. Footprints in the fresh snow, right outside the living room windows. Someone had been standing there watching. The prints were too large and too deliberate to belong to a child. And then the detail that no investigator would ever forget. Someone had attempted to rake over those footprints using a garden rake pulled from the Matthews' own garage. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, no screams reported by any neighbor. Whoever took Jonelle Matthews that night did it quietly, efficiently, and deliberately. They knew the house. They knew the family's routine. They had been watching and waiting for the exact moment when a 12-year-old girl was completely alone. This was not random. This was targeted. Police initially explored the possibility that Jonelle had run away. Jim Matthews pushed back immediately. She had a sleepover planned for the next day, a Christmas presentation at church, presents under the tree. What 12-year-old runs away 5 days before Christmas? They searched her locker, went through her bedroom. No note, no plan, no indication of family trouble. The runaway theory collapsed within days. Investigators turned their attention to Jim himself, standard procedure in cases like this. Jim understood and cooperated fully. He submitted to a polygraph administered by one of the FBI's top examiners west of the Mississippi. The agent told him he failed. He took another with local police. Imagine that. Your daughter is missing and the people meant to find her are accusing you of making her disappear. Jim kept telling the truth. Eventually, he was cleared, which left investigators with nothing. Jonelle's birth mother, Terry Vera Martinez, was placed under surveillance for weeks. She didn't even know Jonelle was missing and hadn't made contact with the family in over a decade. Another dead end in a string of cold case investigations that kept leading nowhere. Meanwhile, the community refused to let Jonelle be forgotten. Prayer vigils were held around the clock. Reward posters spread across the country. And then something happened that would burn Jonelle's face into the memory of an entire nation. She became one of the very first missing children in American history to have her photo printed on a milk carton. In the mid-1980s, there was no Amber Alert, no social media. You reached families by putting a face on something they saw at the breakfast table every morning. Jonelle's face was on milk cartons coast-to-coast in March 1985. President Ronald Reagan gave a speech about the crisis of missing children in America and mentioned Jonelle by name. The most powerful man in the world was talking about a 12-year-old girl from a small Colorado town. And still, nothing. The case went cold. In 1994, a decade after Jonelle vanished, Jim and Gloria made the gut-wrenching decision to have her declared legally dead. Gloria said publicly, they'd spent 10 years without a reason, without a motive, without a single answer. Doesn't anyone know anything? She asked. Can't someone just tell us where her body is so we can bury our daughter? Nobody answered. Staying in Greeley became unbearable. Jim and Gloria eventually left, first to the Philippines as missionaries, then retired to Costa Rica. Jennifer married and moved to Washington State, but Gloria never stopped looking. She told people that in every dream Jonelle came home. Every single dream her daughter walked back through that front door, smiling. In reality, that door stayed closed for 35 years. If this true crime story has you gripped right now, hit subscribe. Ripple Effect Stories covers cold cases like this one every single week. Real families, real detectives who refuse to quit, real justice. There are more unsolved cold cases linked in the description below. Don't miss them. Now let's get back to the case, because what happened next is genuinely unlike anything I have ever covered. July 23, 2019. A construction crew is working on a new oil and gas pipeline in a remote stretch of Weld County farmland, about 15 miles southeast of Greeley. Just another dig until the bulldozer hits something. Human bones, a skull with orthodontic braces still attached, fragments of fabric, a plaid skirt, a blouse, a sweater vest. The same clothes Jonelle Matthews was wearing the night she disappeared. 2 days later, the Weld County coroner's office confirmed what the whole community had feared. DNA and dental records made it definitive. These were Jonelle's remains. The autopsy revealed a single gunshot wound to the head. This murder investigation, dormant for 35 years, reopened with a new urgency. The remains had been wrapped in a white bed sheet. Her coat was partially zipped and turned inside out, the cuffs tucked under her armpits. When investigators pulled the cuffs open, small hand bones fell out. Jonelle's hands had been tucked against her own body when she died. She was cold. A 12-year-old girl standing in a field in December trying to keep warm. Let that sit for a moment. Weeks after the discovery, Greeley police announced they had a person of interest. His name was Stephen Dana Panky. In 1984, Panky was a 33-year-old married father living 2 miles from the Matthews home. He attended the same church, the Sunny View Church of the Nazarene, and on December 19th, the day before Jonelle vanished, he had been arrested at a local bank for harassment and criminal trespass. His used car business had failed. He was unraveling. The day after Jonelle disappeared, Panky's then wife, Angela Hicks, said he came home and announced they were leaving immediately. A sudden, unplanned trip to California to visit his parents for Christmas. She testified the trip was rushed, unexpected, and strange. But the drive back was stranger. Panky had banned all media from their home, no television, no radio, no newspapers. He called it a godly household. Angela wasn't even allowed to drive. Yet on the return journey to Greeley, Panky suddenly ordered her to turn on the car radio. He wanted news. Specifically, he wanted to hear about a missing girl, a girl he would later claim he'd never heard of. Angela testified she flipped through stations for hours, while Panky listened obsessively for any mention of Jonelle Matthews. When they got back, he drove straight to a store and bought every local newspaper. Then he made Angela read every article about Jonelle's disappearance out loud to him, 3 times each. That same week, he changed into coveralls and started digging in the front yard. A septic issue, he said. Their septic tank had just been replaced earlier that year. Then a car stored on their property caught fire. Angela went outside and found Panky standing next to the burning vehicle holding a shovel. A sudden out-of-state trip, obsessive monitoring of news about Jonelle, unexplained digging, a burning car, all within 1 week of a 12-year-old girl's murder. And then Panky did something that no guilty man in his right mind should ever do. He picked up the phone and called the FBI. 1 month after Jonelle vanished, Panky walked into the Greeley Police Department claiming to be an ordained minister who had received information about the disappearance through a pastoral confession. He said he could help solve the case. His condition, immunity first. Police noted his name and started watching. Over the next 3 decades, Panky bounced around several states before settling in Twin Falls, Idaho. He ran for office repeatedly, sheriff 3 times, lieutenant governor, governor twice. He never won. In 2018, he pulled 1.4% of the Republican primary vote. But politics was never the real story. In everything he filed, court documents, petitions, legal letters, Panky scattered references to Jonelle Matthews. Cases that had nothing to do with a murdered girl from Colorado somehow always circled back to her. When police eventually searched his home, they found more than 1,000 documents mentioning Jonelle Matthews. In a 1999 Idaho Supreme Court filing, he wrote that he feared he might face the death penalty for revealing the location of her body. He described himself as a material witness in the Jonelle Matthews case. He called himself the subject of a capital murder investigation, and in nearly every letter, the same demand. Give me immunity, give me a deal, and then I'll tell you where the body is. Nobody gave him a deal, but everybody was listening, and every word was being filed away. Because Panky knew something that only Jonelle's killer could have known. Those footprints in the snow, the ones someone tried to rake over, that detail was never released to the public. The police deliberately held it back as evidence known only to investigators and the killer. Panky referenced it multiple times. His ex-wife found a handwritten note in the trash, written in his own handwriting. Snow outside the Matthews house was raked. His own defense attorney later admitted that single detail was arguably the most damning piece of evidence in the entire case. There is no innocent explanation for how Stephen Panky knew about that rake. In October 2020, a Weld County grand jury handed down an 8-page indictment, first-degree murder and second-degree kidnapping of Jonelle Matthews. Stephen Dana Panky was arrested in Idaho and held without bail. He was 69 years old. The first trial began in October 2021. The prosecution had a serious problem: no DNA. After 35 years in the ground, Jonelle's remains and clothing yielded nothing usable. No fingerprints. No murder weapon. The entire case would rest on Panky's own words and behavior across 4 decades. Roughly 60 witnesses, the 1,000+ documents, the holdback evidence about the rake, the recorded jail calls where he spoke about his guns in code after learning Jonelle died from a gunshot wound. The star witness was Angela Hicks, his ex-wife. She laid it all out: the rushed California trip, the obsessive radio listening, the newspaper articles read aloud 3 times each, the unexplained digging. And she told the jury about something that happened in 2008 when Panky's own son died. At the funeral, as Panky leaned down and kissed the urn, he whispered, "I hope God didn't allow this to happen because of Jonelle Matthews." His son's funeral, and the name on his lips was Jonelle's. The jury deadlocked on murder and kidnapping, a mistrial. The Matthews family was devastated. The prosecution came back in October 2022 with a new witness, Patrick Collas, an inmate who had been housed in the same protective custody pod as Panky. They had prayed together, done Bible studies. One day Panky approached him and said he needed forgiveness. They prayed. Panky said, "I did some bad things." Collas asked if he was talking about Jonelle. Panky nodded. When asked directly if he killed her, Panky replied, "That's between me and God." But there was more. Another inmate pounded on the wall and told Collas to come listen. Through the cell glass, Collas heard Panky say 4 words that no innocent man would ever speak. "She was dead before I crossed the railroad tracks." Collas wrote to the district attorney after the first mistrial. His conscience wouldn't let him stay quiet. On Halloween 2022, the jury returned a verdict: guilty of felony murder, second-degree kidnapping with a deadly weapon, and false reporting to authorities. Life in prison. Earliest possible release, 2042. He'll be 91. Before sentencing, the Matthews family spoke. Jennifer Mogensen, Jonelle's older sister, stood up and told the court that 12,634 days had passed since her sister disappeared. Her husband never met his sister-in-law. Her son never met his aunt. The sibling rivalry she and Jonelle had in childhood never had the chance to grow into an adult friendship. Panky stole that from her. Jim Matthews stood next. He looked directly at the man who murdered his daughter and said, "You have been obsessed with your actions, and your consciousness could not let you forget. You have been a prisoner of your own mind." Then he added something no one in that courtroom expected. "You've claimed to be a Christian on many occasions. There's still hope for you. The gates of heaven can still be open for you. It's not too late. Steve Panky, God is waiting." A father who lost everything, offering grace to the man who took it. Gloria Matthews did not share that grace. She said afterward, "I cannot forgive him for how he killed Jonelle. God's the only one that can forgive evil, and I feel that this is evil." The ripple didn't stop with the Matthews family. Panky's wife of 36 years, his 9 grandchildren, a family who had no idea what lived inside the man they shared a home with. That is the ripple effect. It doesn't spare anyone. It moves outward and outward, until it touches lives that never even knew Jonelle's name. This case is a reminder that guilty men are not always undone by forensic science. Sometimes, they are undone by their own inability to stay silent, by the weight of what they carry pressing outward in letters, in court filings, in whispered words at a son's funeral. Jonelle Matthews was 12 years old. She loved singing. She loved Christmas. She loved her family, and she deserved so much more time than she got. If this story moved you, subscribe to Ripple Effect Stories. Every week, we uncover the cases where one moment changed everything. Before you leave, type Jonelle in the comments. One word, so Jonelle Matthews is not forgotten. Do you think the jury got it right convicting Panky without any DNA evidence? Or was the circumstantial case strong enough on its own? Drop your answers below.